Hi, everybody. We're going to get started again. Oh, you're so well behaved. So this is our last panel of the whole thing. Have you had fun? So Sarah Simison had just recently come back from parental leave. So Sarah Grimes and Amanda, I did a lot of this without her. So maybe they deserve an extra round of applause. And there's Sarah Simison. Oh, there they are. And Amanda moderated her first on-stage panel yesterday. Did you see that? Yeah. She loves when I do this. And then, of course, welcome back, Sarah. We love you, too. All right, this panel is called The Monster Within, and our speakers are KJ at the end, whose book is The Monster in the Mirror, which is, I love this kind of book that has, it's a memoir, but it has academic stuff, but in a really accessible way. But then also she talks about, I think, every novel she's ever read that had monsters in it and kind of interprets it in light of her project, and it's, I don't know, Guy Vanderhey was talking about, is there still an audience for intelligent readers that aren't academic? And her book says yes. Her book trusts that there is.
All of you.
All of you. So that was not my intro. She's an award-winning author from Toronto. She loves dragons more than anyone I've ever heard of loving dragons. Brandon wrote Beautiful, Beautiful. So we have a memoir, a novel, and short stories. Oh, wrong order. So I'm not even looking at you guys. So KJ, Jess, John Elizabeth, who goes by Jess, short stories. He's a graduate of University of Manitoba, and we all know Alison Calder and Warren Carew. A lot of us do. They're Saskatchewan-born and raised writers who are at University of Manitoba. So I talked to Alison Calder just before I came, and she said, oh, Jess is so amazing, such a great writer, such a great person. My first time meeting them, so welcome to Moose Jaw. And Brandon, beautiful, beautiful. First book, and this is what you really have to clap him on. He's a TTOC, and you don't know that phrase here because it's a R word in BC for substitute teacher. The hardest job in the world, especially right now. So congratulations for surviving that. This is a bit of an unusual mix of books because they're all different genres in a sense. And KJ's book, because it talks about what monsters mean, monsters, monstrosity, the monstrous, and kind of tells us how nothing can be more scary than our own mind. And it made me feel like we're all just one slippery slide from mental illness. Easily could happen, and how scary that can be. You really capture the horror of how it feels to feel that way. So it gave me a real, I'd read these two first, and then I read that one, and her book gave me a context to understand the other two books in terms of monstrosity. So what I'm hoping will happen is that I will throw out questions that are general to all of them, and they will break into extremely intelligent conversation, and I will sit here and listen with the rest of you. So no pressure at all. But in terms of you loving dragons, KJ, I feel like we're going to start on the positive. And though these books are dark and they address dark topics, probably we will mostly talk about mental illness, but there's magic in each of your works, and maybe in your life, that the way it functioned as a counterbalance or a survival technique or something else, but you seem to all have a hold on the magic and create a place for the magic. So can you talk about the way magic works in your work and in your life?
Magic in particular?
Yep. Or the supernatural, like anything that might be classified as magical, spiritual, extra, not of the ordinary world, but in a happy way, not a scary way.
Okay.
Happy monster.
Well, dragons can be scary, but they're not scary in your work.
I think dragons get a bad rap, to be honest. Everybody's like, oh, slay the dragon, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, ride the dragon, or be the dragon. I don't know, I guess that's a good starting point there. When I was a kid, I used to... Okay, so in the 80s, I used to write fan fiction, and back in the 80s, it wasn't called fan fiction, it was just being weird. But because kids are inherently egotistical, I would write myself into the stories, and I would be the hero, and I would ride the dragons. And then at one point when I discovered Dungeons and Dragons, and there's a particular class that you can play, or like within the world, there are a class where you can actually be a dragon, and they shapeshift into either a human or an elf. I was like, that's what I want. And now realizing as an adult that I wanted to be the dragon because that meant power, it meant agency, and it was a possibility where I could get out of my own head. I didn't live a particularly positive childhood. This was a way for me to get out of, to imagine something where I could be the hero. Yeah, I don't know if that really answers the question. You guys feel the same way, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think of like the monster as sort of like play. I don't know. Like, I feel like the good thing about the monster is it's fun to play with the monster, I think, in fiction is, especially, I think that's why they do kind of come up with, especially in this book. But I think it also, like, for me, like, in terms of the positive of the monster, is that it's sort of like, is somewhat an answer to sort of make sense of things. Is like you create this thing that embodies all of these things and makes them feel real, be that mental illness or whatever it is. Like, even though it's sort of a darkness, it sort of makes it at least more tangible, and sort of it feels like you're actually, the adversary is this like actual creature perhaps. So I think it's not necessarily a happy thing, but I feel like it is sort of positive in the sense that it gives, at least narratively, it gives you like something to like latch on to when it comes to especially all these sort of ephemeral or sort of existential issues that, you know, my characters are oftentimes going through.
Mm-hmm.
What was the original question?
Magic or spiritual in a positive way in your books that balance or counterbalance or work as a survival technique against the darkness?
Well, I mean, that's a lot to talk about. With me, I tried to take like my traumas and make something good of them. So as you could see with like the subsequent drafts of the book, right? Mine's about my traumas dealing with my grandpa wasn't really there for me, and I get the picture because he's from Bella Bella. So he had to escape residential schools by working as a fisherman, stuff like this. So as you can see with the subsequent drafts of the book, you could see that I became more understanding of who my grandpa was and what he went through, and I became more sympathetic. And in that sense, the act of writing was actually like a healing journey in itself. Yeah. Always thinking back to the blues, right? Like, you can't really get rid of those traumas, but you can make something beautiful out of them. So that was one aspect of beautiful, right? Was making art out of something that was quite maybe even evil or bad.
I think there's something too, there's kind of this misnomer or misconception that mental illness and trauma, I mean, the actual act of trauma and living through it is it can be very awful and it can be monstrous, but what is more monstrous and what was for me was the silence, the rejection of anything that was, you know, not normal, ableism, yeah, I think that, you know, with more advocacy towards missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls and Two-Spirit people, and towards real understanding of mental illness, I think that we're seeing the true monster, and it's not the victims, it's not us, it's not the survivors, it's the silence.
Yes, we're going to get to that. But there's a scene, when I'm thinking of dragons, there's a scene in your book, very sad things happen in your book, but the one time that I like went, oh no, like while I was reading, was you had presented a story to your mother, and your mother said it's not good, or and then you went in, you ripped up the story into pieces, and then you went up and you ripped up this dragon that you had written into pieces. And so when I read, I'm gonna cry now again. Everyone who's seen me in other sessions knows I'm into that this weekend. But I yelped out loud when you ripped the story, and then when you ripped the dragon, I was just like, oh no, because for me that was, I don't know, that was a bit of light of your childhood and your talent, and it was squashed, and so it was so sad. That's not a question. It's just
Thank you. It's nice to, you know, it's only in my 40s as I've been writing it, I was like, man, that was shitty. You know, I didn't really realize, like, I have
It's
mommy.
so easy to just be like, that's great. Look at
Yeah,
that.
like, oh, that's normal, you know, like your mom telling you your writing sucks, basically, and then you go destroy all this beautiful creativity. And it wasn't just the writing or drawing dragon. I drew a lot of dragons, okay? I still do. But it was like destroying this, you know, possibility, this creativity, this, you know, and I was so young too. It was like I was destroying this person that I wanted to become. And I was becoming what I think my mother, now we're gonna get into my therapy, okay? So sit down. I was, you know, leaning into this person that I think my mother expected me to be, which was not as good as her. So anyways, if you have mommy issues, read my book.
Yeah, definitely. The other counterbalance against darkness in your books is humor. I mean, they're dark books, but I think when we focus on talking about the darkness, we miss some of the light. And comedy is one of the hardest things to write is comedy because it's so subjective. I'm wondering if the little funny bits in your books or surreal books or quirky bits, if they arose naturally or if they were conscious effort to counterbalance, and what you saw the role of comedy as you were writing or humor.
For me, it came naturally because mine's written from the perspective of a bird. So like the whole time, like the qualifier for like putting anything down on paper was like if it made me laugh, I'd put it down. Yeah, it came extremely naturally to me. That was my natural disposition, was to write something that was funny and dark, and to grapple with my traumas. You know.
That's common in Indigenous storytelling.
Comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah, the trickster. That was the idea behind Redbird. It's traditional Indigenous technique to have a talking animal narrator. So that's what I implemented. You know, the trickster too.
I think I could try to not be funny, and I don't think it would work. I don't know. But I'm also like always surprised when people like laugh at my stories. Like some of them are like, yeah, it's about like a weird Jesus action figure that actually cleanses sins. And it's like, yeah, it
that
is funny.
sounds awesome.
Like, it is funny.
Your
Yeah.
stories
it's
are very
I mean, that's
funny.
also the one that like makes people cry the most, I think, in this book. So like, it is brutal as well. But I don't know. I think that for me as well, like it comes kind of naturally, or it just is sort of part of my, like, especially with like my poetry. I feel like I've done poetry readings and people like laugh at these poems. I'm like, oh yeah, I guess that's funny. And I just don't think about it as funny. Like I don't think I intentionally really, I mean, there are certain things, I think a lot of the premises of my book, or premises of my stories, especially with My Volcano as well, which is very similar to Bad Houses in terms of like tone, a lot of them start out as sort of like funny ideas. Like, oh, isn't it, like, you know, like a funny idea is like, what if the elephant in the room, but the elephant in the room is dead? Like
That's
that's
the one
one
I
of my
was thinking
stories.
of,
And it's
right.
like, isn't that funny? And it's like all about like relationship like falling apart, and it's like really sad, and it's like gory as hell. But it's like it's a very dark story. But I think a lot of my ideas kind of primarily come as kind of images, and primarily are kind of like slightly humorous. And then my job, I think I do acknowledge that, but my job is to sort of like make them serious as much as possible. Like I was like, how can I make this story that's about like in My Volcano, there's a part where this woman like wakes up inside of a giant insect, like in sort of like
Which is
Kafka.
not funny at all.
Yeah, I know it's a funny idea, but I was like, okay, that's funny, but like how can we make this like serious and meaningful as well? And I think that obviously I think all of my favorite books as well, or the books that are like the most meaningful to me, tend to also have like humor in it and also be dark as hell, like Beckett or something like Catch-22. You know, I don't know. It's like I can't even read that book now that it's not funny the first time. I've tried to read Catch-22 again, and it's just like so sad. But yeah.
Maybe surreal absurdism or something
Yeah,
would
it's
fit, but
definitely
that's
like,
funny.
Yeah,
Those,
yeah,
like,
that's the sort of like angle that I think I go on. But I don't think I usually am thinking like I'm gonna be funny. It just kind of ends up happening.
I think people who are thinking I'm going to be funny aren't funny, though.
Yeah.
True.
Maybe that bodes well for me because I do not think I'm funny. Like I try. I mean, I'm hilarious. Let's be real. But I think my writing, there's like I'm wondering what was funny about it. I don't think I wrote anything that was funny in there. I wish I could write comedy. I really wish I could. But
Oh, there's funny dialogue
Oh,
and there's
really?
funny reactions. Yeah, there are funny parts in your book.
okay, we're gonna have to talk after.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna have to go back and read and then write you, but.
You all have to read it.
Very
and then
relieved.
let-
I felt like it was,
Okay, no.
you know, and when you're, you know how people laugh at funerals? And it's such a, you think, oh my gosh, I'm laughing at this funeral, but it's such a relief at the same
Yeah.
time. And I think that was the kind of funny, that it would be sad, 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 intense, intense, and you just feel any
You gotta do
opportunity to
something,
laugh,
yeah.
you just let it out.
Oh, okay. So my book was like a funny funeral.
Exactly. It was very much like a funny funeral.
That's the blurb.
But and you know,
Funny funeral.
Kurt Vonnegut says, laughing and crying are the same thing when there's nothing else to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some of that kind of laughter.
Yeah.
Yeah. People never laugh at your readings?
I mean, once again, I am hilarious, but my writing is not. So I don't know, maybe it's the delivery. I don't know.
Yeah, I think your story is not funny. Your story is
Yeah.
sad, but your writing is funny.
Okay, I'm gonna choose to believe you.
Think about that the next time you present it. Maybe it'll come off funny. Yeah.
Right, I am now a comedian.
So I want to talk about, self-hatred and where it comes from, and very uplifting, funny topics like that.
This is where the comedy
This is about
comes
my
in.
book, isn't it?
All of your books. But before I do that, I want to talk about isms, like hatred that comes from the outside. And all of your books address address isms and how the society creates the monster from shaping you, or you use the word speaking the monster, KJ, in your book. Can you talk about what that means, to speak the monster? Do you remember your book at all? You're looking at me like, oh no, here she goes again. I think she read a different
Speak
book.
the monster.
Speaking the monster. Well, tell the Frankenstein story, and he might take you there. Like someone says you're a monster, and it makes you a monster, and it's the outside
okay.
address.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what isms do.
Yeah. I feel like I'm getting a lesson here.
Just like Terry.
I'm
just
really
like I
not
taught
that
Terry
smart.
what his book was about. Now I'm going to teach KJ what her
I
book
think
is.
so one of my it's actually the only line that I can remember, but I think it's because it's my favorite. And it's in relation to the Frankenstein's story and the grief of what, the monster never had, or Frankenstein's creature, I think is what he actually was called, never had. And it's, if you corner a puppy and kick it, the puppy will then become a monster. You can't then blame the monster for not being a puppy. And I think that is, I think that can be translated to so many aspects of oppression, colonialism, racism, ableism, where folks are slotted into this, externalized category of what is expected of them. And then if they behave that way, they're blamed for it. Or if they're dealing with the trauma of that, they're blamed for it. It's complete gaslighting. But if they try to be anything else, they're either, inspiration porn, or they're still not good enough. I don't know, this is me not being funny, but it's my soapbox. I don't think that it's difficult for folks who have been, subjugated to one of the isms, I suppose, to actually try and break out of that and be something else, right? I want to be a dragon, metaphorically and literally, right?
You are a dragon.
Thank you.
There's a lot of killing of vulnerable things in these stories, killing of kittens, killing of puppies, killing of people who are at their lowest, and that I think that really portrays how society takes the weak and then makes them feel like monsters. I was thinking of Richard's movie, and Richard Van Camp's movie on the weekend, and he told me it was a movie about restorative justice, where instead of being sent to prison, the boys were sent to 9 months on the land with their elders, and they reformed. And I said, does that really happen? And he said, it's becoming a movement. He said, but why? I took a story that happened that was not so happy and changed the ending for the movie, or for the book that I wrote. And he said, because what happens is these boys there's no opportunity for them in society. People treat them horribly, they become addicted, then they do horrible things, and then they're taken south to the prisons where they become even more horrible. So society is creating the monster, So can you talk about now, I guess we're moving into the mental health, the ways this hatred from society turns into self-hatred, turns into the monster within, and the way that shows up in your work? The damage it does, do Do you want to start? Because it's most obvious in your book.
How is it most obvious? I
Oh boy.
don't know.
The way society hurts the characters and they internalize it.
Yeah. Well, give me an example. I could talk about it.
The abuse, the domestic abuse.
Towards who?
Okay.
Really don't know.
You don't know. Okay,
No,
let's start.
don't know what
Let's
you're getting
start with you. Sorry.
Okay, repeat the question one more time.
The way people internalize hatred of society and it turns into
Yeah.
mental health issues, it turns into
Yeah.
self-doubt,
Yeah.
and they begin
Yeah.
to see themselves.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I went to school for neuroscience. So I mean, holding a real human brain was pretty cool, but that's a side story. And I actually went because, again, humans are very egotistical. When I was diagnosed with bipolar, agoraphobia, and social anxiety disorder, I was like, might as well go to school and figure out why I am the way I am. And there, we call it intergenerational trauma. There's, epigenetics, there's inheritability factors, risk factors. But our brains change. If your grandmother experienced trauma, there are certain aspects in her brain and in her genes that actually get flipped on or off, which then carry down to further generations, right? So the trauma that, my grandfather experienced, he served in 4 armies because he couldn't not be embedded in violence, and he died at 54 of, probably it was alcohol poisoning. He died outside of a bar. That obviously has slid down the generations to me, where I lived with undiagnosed substance use disorder, I think, probably, in order to deal with, my mental illness. And bipolar disorder is 60% heritability. And with mood disorders too. I mean, it's a mood disorder, so depression is also part of that delightful package too. So, I was at a talk with, everybody know who David Robertson is?
Yeah.
Coolest guy
I think everybody in this
school.
room knows he comes here often.
God, he's so awesome. I love him so much. And you can tell him that too. And he said, and it was with respect to Indigenous populations and communities, that you can't heal broken with broken. And I think there's something to be said there, that we can't heal ourselves if we remain in the same sort of structures that we've been forced into. And luckily for me, I mean, I live with privilege. Just look at me, I am privileged. I was able to get the help that I need, but yeah, I'm rambling now. Someone stop me. Did I answer the question?
Yeah, and in your address, you have the line, I became blackness that moves on air, that seemed to capture. You seem to capture a lot of the things she's talking about in a more, again, surreal, metaphorical way.
I mean, is that in Blueness? Probably. Yeah, I mean, I think that, it's interesting. We're talking about, the social, and you're talking about, medically, trauma, and depression. I mean, I don't know, those are things that, there is, a social aspect to it, and then there's also, just the brain is bad. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, for mine, I mean, I think it comes down to also, and it comes to, racism, transphobia, and all these sorts of things. Yeah, it does come down to, we're all, shaped by stories to some degree, and, a lot of those stories we don't get to tell. Someone else is telling us these stories, and that's the things that are, we're internalizing these things that are then sort of transforming us into, at least for me, making me feel monstrous and all those sorts of things. So, I don't know, there are a lot of stories where I don't know, there's definitely a lot of mental health stuff going on in my books, and a lot of loneliness and darkness. And especially in stories like, Dumb House and Blueness. And I don't know, I mean, I don't know about the social aspect of it, but I'm drawing a little bit of a blank, but.
One thing I found interesting, another thing, is when I read your book, it sort of explained to me things that I didn't understand or couldn't quite put together in these 2 books. And you talked about mental illness, KJ, in a way that, what if we didn't have all these negative preconceptions? What if it was a beautiful thing for someone to be able to access 2 personalities? And then that made me, well, the one example you had, you have to explain this because I don't remember exactly the details, but if you can see something that's not there, and you interpreted that in a positive way, and it made me understand
Yeah.
your door story or things in
Yeah.
your book that I wouldn't think of as flat out realism. Can you talk about seeing something that's not there? Do you remember that part of your book?
I do remember
Good.
that part, but I think like, once the book went to print, I actually was working on another story. I think it was like for Chatelaine or something, but I was doing some research, and a psychiatrist from, I think it was Toronto Western. Anyways, I have a horrible memory. He was explaining to me bipolar disorder. I mean, again, I'm still on this mission to figure out what this is that has taken over my life. And there's an aspect, it was statistically significant, which means it's probably like this is the case in all the studies, that people with bipolar disorder are also more likely to be open to new experiences, which I thought, that's interesting. And of course, there is the mania and the hypomania element, which makes us do like, oh yes, this is a great idea, when it probably is not. But I think that with a lot of mental illnesses and neurodiversity like ADHD, autism, there is an aspect there that is actually beneficial to us. But it's all of the other things, like how dare you, be okay with yourself having bipolar disorder? That's an awful thing. Like, no, I do try new things.
Yeah.
I wrote a book. That wasn't a good idea, but I thought it was, right? So I think that seeing all the sides of what mental illness is and who it makes us be, I cannot extricate myself from my mental illness, and nor at this point do I want to, because I am sitting
Also,
here.
what's the advantage if you can't get out of it to pretend like you're out
Yeah,
of it?
yeah. Like, I don't expect me to be something that I'm not. And people are like, oh, when I say I have bipolar disorder, they're like, oh, it's either they're looking like for the nearest exit, or they're like, oh, you're so delusional, you think that's okay?
Yeah.
Like, what the hell, man? Anyways.
Yeah.
And you remember the part where you talked about seeing a parrot on the shoulder?
Yeah, so
Because it helped me understand the which house, which I didn't get at first. I'm like, I like this story, but I don't get it at all.
So I was talking about hallucinations. I'm fascinated with hallucinations because I watched a lecture. A psychologist was saying, we actually all hallucinate. Don't kid yourself. Because your brain, your attention cannot actually pick up everything around you right now, right? It only filters in what you need for this very moment to achieve your objective goals. And right now is to listen to me being awesome. But everything else around you, even if you don't see it, your brain is filling in the blanks, right? So your brain is actually creating a story for you. This is why, if there's a hit and run, you may have thought it was a white Toyota Camry, but meanwhile it was like a Camaro in fiery red or something. But you are absolutely convinced of one thing because this is what your brain has told you. So we all do hallucinate. Cool, huh? Yeah, you don't need drugs for that. But we assume that somebody who is experiencing a visual, audio, or tactile hallucination, that they're completely batshit crazy, when actually their experience is true. And to deny them the truth of their experience is to isolate them even farther. And that makes it worse.
Yeah.
So I believe you are seeing a leprechaun sitting on your shoulder. I believe it, right? Doesn't necessarily mean it's my truth, but I think approaching mental health care as, people, with loved ones with mental health challenges, mental health care providers, communities, if we approach it in, that is your truth, that is your experience, and I respect that, and I'm here to support you with that. I think that we can get a lot farther than what we have been doing, fumbling along by now.
Yeah.
And Jess, I haven't forgot about you. I'm coming to you in a second. But Jess, can you explain why that might make sense at a witch house? Can you tell them about the story Witch House?
Yeah, well, Witch House is about this person who has sort of been confronted with the fact that they might have been bad in this relationship, and they leave this, they break up, and this person is, admits this thing to them, and they're like, oh, I didn't realize this was true, whatever. Like, the first line is like, I didn't want to have sex every time that we did, and that was like, then they broke up, whatever, and he leaves this apartment building, and then like across the street is this just weird crumbling house, and he's like, that's weird, and then he promptly goes to Bangkok where he was planning to teach English, and then he sees that house again there, and eventually again elsewhere, and it's sort of he starts to just be sort of like, and he ends up going to like the north to like work on like a drilling team, and it like always is like finding him, and it's like, and it's just this thing that's like, and if you've read My Volcano, there's also a connection with that story specifically with My Volcano, because that character is a character that's in that book. But yeah, I mean, I think, and I was thinking about this as well. Like, yeah, I mean, like with my stories, I think that we see a lot of the ways in which this sort of like magical thing kind of takes the place of like it kind of liberates some of these characters from these issues in a way that like, yeah, I wish that socially we were able to sort of like see someone who's like hurting and be able to help them. Like with Blueness, a story about this woman who's sort of like dissatisfied with her life, sort of like on a whim moves to Kansas City and eventually is living in this house, and realizes that there's some sort of like presence in this house that she's in, and she's dealing with depression. She's really isolated, and it ends up sort of like realizing that this thing is like that she is in this house is like this monster that's made of like mold, and then she sort of decides to sort of give herself to and become one with this mold. I wrote that story, and then someone who read it was like, oh, it's like suicide, and I was like, oh, I guess that is what happens to some degree. But it is like also very liberatory in terms of like the way in which she's able to sort of like become part of this sort of like collective like mycelium kind of world. Like it's all like no longer there is a self. She's like liberated from this sort of isolation and has sort of just become one with this big mass. So I think a lot of my stories kind of present these sort of mental health issues, and where they could get help from people. That doesn't usually happen, but sometimes the magical thing liberates them to some degree or another, in a positive or not positive way. I don't know, it depends, but yeah.
Yeah, and I think someone could enjoy your story, not enjoy your stories, be affected by your stories and recognize that. Enjoy parts of it, but they're hard. There are sad stories. Enjoy your stories, be affected.
Yeah.
Like being affected by a story is a way of enjoying it, and recognize your talent and how that it's a good story without necessarily getting it. And sometimes I was like, I don't quite get it, but then I want to read it again. Yeah. But then I read KJ's book, and I'm like, oh, I think I get it. And I'm the kind of reader who likes to get it eventually. So I felt that was interesting. So in all of your books, there is a way in which, so there's this monstrosity, whether it's a monstrosity that's affecting them from an outside or a monstrosity that's now grown on the inside and is affecting them from the inside, whether it's from mental health or addiction, self-hatred. And part of healing is forgiveness and apology, but they're not always the same thing, and what is meant by apology might be different things to different people. Can you talk about the kind of forgiveness and apology that's needed both within your book, without your book societally, and maybe if you feel like being personal to you personally? Because maybe since yours is memorable, how about you go first? You're being so quiet. Healing and forgiveness and apology.
Well, for me, it was understanding what my grandpa meant to me, right? Like I already said. I think the main thing for Derek, so the main character is Derek, right? And he's based a lot on my own experience being half Indigenous, half white. So I think it's allegorical or maybe personification of reconciliation. So the first stage of reconciliation would be like coming to terms with your traumas and your familiar history, right, with residential schools or whatever. I think that's the first stage. And for me to exist as a person, as someone who's half white, who grew up in a household where my mom's like pure white and everything, and my dad is from Bella Bella, he's Indigenous, right? So for me to exist and to be happy or to be fulfilled, I had to come to terms with my ancestry on both sides. So I did sort of reconcile both sides before I could even go into the world, as it were,
And I think correct me if I'm wrong, but I think your book is meant to educate some people about the horrors of our past in this country and the need for reconciliation. And how do you think, what kind of apology would move us forward from this country and the people in the country. You wrote your book when you were teaching and thinking of it as education, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, for me, I think I hesitate to talk on this because I think for me it was very personal, the things that I had to forgive, because it was really to make like, essentially like my dad and my mom stay together, really. And I wouldn't really force that upon Indigenous people at large, right? I think it's a very different experience growing up on the reserve than growing up in a household where it's like sort of a microcosm of reconciliation.
Thank you. And there's in your stories, there's apology at a personal relationship level that work and don't work and are meaningful and not meaningful, and
Yeah.
how people move forward from mental health issues and not.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's a good example of anyone moving on in a positive way. I mean, becoming the
But
mold
maybe
was the
why
right
Maybe
thing.
it's the
maybe why they're
fungus.
not able, why those
Yeah.
apologies are not, don't allow them, why they're not the right
Yeah,
kind
I
of
mean, I think
forgiveness.
sometimes it's just you can't reconcile it. Like there's no, like with Witch House, like at the end, like this character is sort of forced to like go and apologize to someone, and the person that he goes to apologize is not the first person, but the person that he hurt because of this experience that has now like haunted him and sort of like made him sort of act in these sort of ways that he didn't want to act, but felt like I have to protect, like what if I'm still this person that like can do this, like. So I think to some degree like you have to sort of like the twist in that story is that he doesn't go back to the first person who is fine without him, like whatever, like she's had her life, whatever, and like it's that he has to go back to this other person who maybe there's actually like some amount of like forgiveness he'd get for them. Like he what he did with the other person, he has to live with that, but this other person he can at least like try to fix it with them. And and then there's like a story like Elephant, which is again this sort of like the thing that has to happen is these two just need to like not be together, and they she has to take him out to the dumpster or whatever at the end. Like,
I love the dead elephant in the room.
yeah,
So much.
yeah. So I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of like maybe forgiveness of the self, a little bit that happens, and there's also a lot of like the hatred of the self. I don't know. Like I don't like with engagement. Like there's a full like inversion, but even then, I think you sort of like that was sort of a way to like kind of understand this kind of person, and like the way that this kind of like person that can exist, that this the main character sort of eventually becomes. I don't know, but yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think if there's any sort of, but a lot of it is just like I think that for my stories is like there are points where you kind of just have to decide that you can't reconcile it, and you just have to live with that. I mean, especially with like my other books, like Vanishing Monuments, I almost like intentionally was like, I want you to, the ending is sort of like you have to invent the closure. Like you don't always get the closure. You have to just sort of like decide that it is closed. Like you're not always going to get this sort of like redemptive moment. Like it's about this person going back to see their mother who's like so far gone with her dementia that she basically doesn't exist anymore. And at the end they like leave, and it's like, I just have to kind of decide that I've gotten the closure, even though there's no one there that I can get that from.
That is so real and the hardest thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. KJ?
I think with forgiveness, there's two aspects for me because it is my story. I think there was myself, and then there were people who done me wrong. Again, mommy issues. I don't think, people are not going to like this, I actually don't think that you need to forgive to move on. I don't think some people deserve forgiveness. I think actually going down that route sometimes can lead to you gaslighting yourself in that, oh, you've forgiven them, like that's your virtue. No, some people don't deserve forgiveness, period.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that actually can be healing in itself, just actually saying, no, I'm not giving you that integral part of me. Particularly when you've never apologized. Jeez, So I think there's that, and I think there's power in that, but I think what I really needed to reconcile was myself. I was a shit person for a while. I think with mental illness, it does make you kind of crappy. But it also gets to the point where you're tired of being seen as the shit person and being reminded of your bad actions that sometimes you don't even remember because you were not okay. And it's hard, you do apologize to those people who you love. Like, I'm thinking of my husband and the amount that he's seen and he's helped support me through is probably traumatizing, I imagine. And I have apologized, and he has forgiven me for that. But he also knows, he gave me the forgiveness simply because I needed it. And he's like, you were sick, but I think the last part is being able to apologize to myself.
That's the hardest part.
That's the hardest part. And apologize to myself and see the person I used to be. Sometimes I look back and I think back on the young woman or even the little girl I used to be, and I feel so vulnerable for her, and I feel so much for her. It's like, oh, you're gonna go through it, and I wanna look after her. And I think when it comes to somebody living through mental illness or trauma, that's the aspect that you really, when you're coming out the other end, when you start to see that younger person and you want to be their hero. Okay, I'm gonna stop because I'm gonna cry.
Did these books connect with readers the way you hoped they would, and what's next? And then we'll open it up for questions.
Oh, I thought I was going to get in massive trouble, to be honest. So, no, it was
So you're
very
disappointed?
positive. A little bit.
You wanted more drama?
I think I stir the pot a lot, but the reason I used a different narrator is because it's even sort of a meta joke in the book, right? That you don't know if it's Redbird or not, because it could just be Derek telling you it's Redbird, so he doesn't get into trouble, because he always gets into trouble, for running his mouth. So yeah, no, the reception has been overwhelmingly positive, and way better than I could have ever imagined. I didn't know if anyone would read it. I also thought it may be a New York Times bestseller, so I don't know.
I feel
Rooting
like
for you.
every author vacillates between the two. It's like either no one reads it or everyone reads it. It's
Somewhere in the
usually
middle.
Somewhere in the middle, though. Yeah, for me, I feel like, I don't know. I think that I'm always surprised when people read my books, even though I've published 4 of them at this point. I don't know. So I guess someone buys them. I don't know. But yeah, I guess I think that there are a lot of people that sort of these kinds of stories speak to, and I think they also respond to sort of the inventiveness or the sort of imagination as well. They are dark stories, but they're also the various creative things are the story, the Troll Patch has trolls in it, and it's that's cool, but it's also about slavery. I don't know. There's all sorts of really dark stuff while also being kind of there's something kind of inherently readerly pleasurable about it, and it's nice to remember that people are oh yeah, these stories are fun even though they're dark. So because I'm always, I think, kind of worried that I'm overly dark, because I also don't remember that they're funny. So I'm oh no, it's just too dark. But yeah, I think that it's been received pretty well. I think I was sort of unsure what a collection of stories, if anyone would buy them, which is why I put a bunch of illustrations in it. I did a bunch of illustrations for it.
Oh yeah, the
so it has-
illustrations are cool,
there are a lot
everybody.
of and I did the cover. Yeah, I did So all that's me. So because I put that in there because I was so insecure. Who's gonna buy stories? At least there's pictures in it. So so if you like pictures, you should buy my book. So I think I was sort of. I went in definitely underdog with this one with kind of low expectations, but I've been really pleased with the response that it's been getting. Yeah.
Well, yeah, if one person read it, I'm oh my God, you actually read it. But the reception has been, for the most part, overwhelmingly positive, and I'm still kind of blown away because for most of my life, the book is about silence, and here I am speaking about it, And I actually got to narrate my own audiobook, and it was the most full circle experience I ever had, because here I am writing about silence and being threatened into silence. Hello again, mummy issues. And now I wrote my own book, and I narrated my own book. It is in my own voice, and I thought, there's something really beautifully symbolic in that. And the amount of people who listen to the audiobook and who have emailed me or DM'd me or, come up to me this weekend, has just been like, I needed this when I was like 22. Like I needed me and all of you when I was 22. Yeah, so I think, I don't know, I'm blown away. I also feel like I'm gonna let you all down with my next book. Like,
Oh yeah, none of us answered what's next, so please
Yeah,
tell
oh,
us
no,
a little
no.
bit about what's next.
no.
You're not telling us
You're not
what's
telling
next?
us?
Oh,
Oh,
oh my God. I mean, I have bipolar, so I have like 10 novels in my computer right now.
Same.
Yeah. I'm doing a master's degree, an MFA at University of Guelph. So my thesis hopefully will be my next novel, or my first novel. I've written many novels, but it'd be first published. Yeah, fantasy. Shocker. I know, right?
Are there dragons in it?
Actually, this morning I was trying to figure out a plot point, and I was like, a dragon. So yeah,
Good.
there's
Yes.
going to be a dragon now.
There you go.
Who's your advisor?
I don't have Kenisi Lubrin is the program coordinator. I don't have a supervisor yet because that starts in January. But Amanda Leduc, anybody?
yeah.
I know, right? She is my mentor this summer.
Ooh.
I love her.
Oh, I bet you she feels the same way about you. Your book is very good.
I mean,
And
yeah.
very like hers in the
Yeah.
genre, yeah.
Her book Disfigured. If you have not read it, read it now.
I think she came here, right, with it? Yeah.
Yeah, that book was the inspiration for my book. So you need to read the two together.
Yeah, when I heard of your book, I was like, it's like Amanda
Amanda
Leduc's
Leduc.
book.
Yeah. I'm trying to,
Yeah.
I'm her groupie.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess we should also answer the what's next if there's anything. But like right now, I'm working on I've got a billion books, and some of them are already finished that I just haven't really sold yet. But most recently, I wrote a new novel in the last year after quitting my teaching job and getting a job in an art museum. It's a sci-fi novel in stories set in a future sort of turn of the 22nd century, sort of autocratic Iowa at this Museum of Sexual Deviance. So it's
But it's not funny at all.
oh, it's this one I know is funny, but it's also very serious. I was like, this is gonna be fun, and then it's all again about violence and colonialism and imperialism, all that stuff as well as But it's great. Yeah, it's great fun.
I'm working on a book about Raven, and it's going to focus on spirits and shamanism. Look forward to spring 2027. I don't know. I don't really want to.
Okay. Any questions? Yes, Mark.
So you talked about the receptions of your book, they're well received. You've taken off your masks and shown things that have been hidden. What about the flip side? What about the naysayers, the deniers?
They suck.
Okay, I'm going to say this aloud. So he said they said that their books were well received. They've been vulnerable. They've taken off their masks. They've exposed something. What about the naysayers? What about the people who are not happy with the books or denied the things that they said happened? Starting with Brandon.
How do I deal with it? Well, I don't take it personally, for one, because I was a cook, right? So I can't take anything personally. There is, the thing that I worried about, I don't like talking too much about gender. I try and treat people like all the same humans, but one of the things that I was worried about was the female characters being represented well. And it was very traumatic, and I don't think too many people understood that all the characters are flawed, and especially the grandfather. I just presented everything that was related to the grandfather, and I left up to the reader to decide, which I think is allegorical for the relations between the Canadian government and Indigenous peoples, right? Like, this is the state we're in. You decide, right? That's the way I handled that in particular. Yeah, do you want to?
Yeah. I don't know that I had any naysayers for this book, but I don't read my Goodreads reviews as much as I used to. There was the funniest one-star review I ever got for Vanishing Monuments, at least, was someone that was just so mad with the amount of M dashes I used, and I was like, there's 6 on a page, it's such bullshit, and I was just like, you did not even get deep enough to when there's 20 on a page. So I don't know. I mean, I think that. Yeah, I think as well it's hard to take some of that personally because a lot of it is just one person's relationship to the book or just one person's perspective, and it's just what? like someone described like a 1-star review of My Volcano as like the whitest book ever written. It's like there's like half of the characters aren't white, like, but whatever, like that's fine. You can think that, like whatever. It doesn't make a difference to me exactly. It's interesting sometimes, but I don't know. Sometimes it's the positive reviews actually that get under my skin, because I feel like sometimes people read the books and they have this like, where if it's like a full-on review and I'm just like, that's a weird interpretation, and like it sort of like unsettles me. But it's like they enjoyed it, but I'm like, that's weird. That like I don't know. I feel like that's harder for me to rectify or
Where you're
sort of,
like
reconcile with sometimes.
You're
Yeah.
like, they enjoyed it, but it's not the book I wrote.
Yeah, like I feel like you're bringing like a thing that I wasn't doing. And sometimes that's cool, and sometimes it's just like, all right, like I guess go with God. I don't know.
I do not have that kind of self-restraint. I was on Goodreads this morning. I don't know why. But something that I've noticed, and I think this is sort of like, this is the interwebs just summed up. People who put 1 stars don't actually put a review. They're very quiet.
See,
but
that's the part I hate, when they don't
no,
even
I'm like,
bother
you're a
to-
coward.
Yeah,
Tell me why.
yeah.
Meet me outside, okay? But I did have, there was one review, which, I mean, I respect it. And I assume this reader, I know this reader has or is still going through whatever their own mental health crises, issues, that sort of thing. And they took real onus with the monster part, and saying that I'm basically going down the mental illness is a monster route. To each their own. If you want to think that, that's fine. But I also thought, you didn't really read it, because that's I'm arguing the exact opposite. Yeah. And there was another one that said, it was like 2 or 3 stars. I don't really want to read a memoir about somebody I don't even know. I know. I was like, joke's on
They
you.
must not
You
read
already
very
read
many
it.
memoirs,
Like,
yeah.
hooked you in.
Yeah. How many famous people do they know? It's
I know, right? Like,
it's like,
here-
I'm friends with Michelle Obama.
Yeah,
I'm
here's
reading
Prince
hers.
Harry
Like,
for you. By the way, his audiobook sucks. So
I think that any book that doesn't get a bad review is
Sus.
cowardly. Like, you gotta make some enemies with a book.
know,
like I feel
right?
like that's
It really
at
pissed
least
people
that's how
off.
I like to look at it. Like
Yeah.
whenever I have like 3.5 stars on Goodreads, I'm like, I did it. Like, it's a good book.
yeah.
You know, it's got to be just controversial enough. Because then the people who really love it, and the people who don't really don't, and that's great. You know.
Excellent. We are so out of time, but these 3 will hang out there around the book table if you want to ask them some more questions personally or get them to sign your books. And the team is going to come up. They have more things to say to you, but let's thank our writers, and thank you all very much.